Please be seated. The court is now in session. As the trial chamber schedule for today's proceeding, today we will hear the testimony of a witness. That is TCW 505. Mr. Dao An San, could you report the attendance of the parties and individuals to today's proceeding? Dao An San, Mr. President, for today's proceeding, all parties are present. On the side note, Tanuchi is present in the holding cell downstairs pursuant to the decision of the trial chamber concerning his health. It should also be noted that the national lead co-lawyer for civil parties is absent. As reported by the President, today we will hear the testimony of a witness TCW 505. This witness already took an oath this morning at the ECCC and confirms that through the best knowledge, the witness has no relationship by blood or by law through any of the two accused or the civil parties in this case. This witness has Mr. Momorati as a duty counsel. We also have a reserve witness, that is TCW 386, who also took an oath this morning. Thank you. President, thank you, Mr. Dao An San. Before we commence our evidentiary hearing on the witness TCW 505, the Chamber would like to inform all parties to discuss that for today's proceeding and the subsequent days, Judge Jasakon is absent due to his health. After consultation with all the judges of the bench, we decided to appoint the reserve Judge Tumane to replace the Judge Jasakon, who is absent until such time he returns to his seat. This is based on the provision of Internal Rule 79.4 of the ECCC Internal Rules. Court officer, could you invite the witness and the duty counsel into the courtroom? President, good morning, Mr. Witness. May we know your name? Witness. My name is Pichim. President, thank you. How old are you, Mr. Pichim? Mr. Pichim, please observe a slight pause when you hear the question before you respond, so that your response will be interpreted. And the AV unit will operate the microphone for you. And when you see the red light on the console of the microphone, then you can respond, and your voice will go through the distribution system. In particular, it will go through the interpreter's booth, and it will be interpreted simultaneously into English and French. Once again, Mr. Pichim, how old are you? Answer: I am 77 years old. Thank you. Question: where is your current residence? Answer: my address is in Pa'aw village, Pa'aw commune, Trapang Prasad district, Udor Minchai province. Question: what is your current address, your current occupation rather? Answer: I am a farmer. Question: what is your father's name? Answer: my father's name is Pripet. He is deceased. Question: and your mother's name? Answer: Un-on is my mother's name, and she passed away. Question: what is your wife's name, and how many children do you have together? Answer: her name is Chrakpik Naing, and we have 5 children. Thank you, Mr. Pichim. As reported by the greffier, through your base knowledge, you have no relationship by blood or by law through any of the civil parties recognized in this case, nor through any of the 2 accused, that is Nuon Chea and Kieu Sampon, and that you already took an oath this morning. Before your appearance before this chamber. Is this information correct? Answer: yes, it is. President, we would like to inform you of your right and obligation. Mr. Pichim, as a witness appearing before this chamber, you may refuse to respond to any questions or requests for your comments that might incriminate you. This is your right against self-incrimination. And as requested, and in order to exercise that right, through Visu unit, the chamber grant you a duty counsel that is more mature during your appearance, so you can consult with him in such a situation, so that you can choose either to respond or not to respond to the question. And as a witness before this chamber, It is your obligation that you have to respond to all the questions put to you by any of the judges or parties to this case. And you must tell the truth that you have heard, have known, have recalled, or experienced or observed directly regarding any event put to you in the questions by any of the judges of the bench or any of the parties. And Mr. Pitcham, had you been interviewed by the investigators of the office of the co-investigating judges during the last few years? Answer: I was interviewed at the house by the agents of this court, and I was interviewed 4 times at the time. Question: so you were interviewed 4 times. Can you tell us when and where you were interviewed? Answer: the interviews were conducted at my house in Pa'ao village, Pa'ao commune, Prasat district. Question: can you recall the month or the years of the interviews if you cannot recall the date? Answer: it was in 2005 for one interview. It took 4 days, and then it was again done in 2008. And recently I was made on the 25th. That is when I was invited to appear before this chamber. Question: before you appeared before this chamber, have you examined, reviewed, or listened to the written records of your interview that you gave to the investigators in order to refresh your memory? Answer: yes. Yes, I listen through the written record of my interview. Question: to your best knowledge and recollection, can you tell us whether the written records of your interview that you listened to reflect your responses that you provided to the investigators during the interview? Answer: yes, they are consistent. President: thank you, Mr. Pitcham. For the hearing of the testimony of this witness, the prosecution is given the floor first. And the prosecution with the lead co-lawyers is allocated half a day to question this witness, and another half a day is allocated to the defense teams. The prosecution, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good morning to you, Mr. President, and Your Honours. Good morning to my fellow counsel, and good morning to you, Mr. Pitcham. My name is Keith Rayner. I'm one of the prosecutors in this case. I would like to start, please, by asking you some questions about the time when you first joined the revolution and what positions you held within your district? So my first question is, can you please tell us what year it was when you joined the revolution?
Answer. I joined the revolution at the district at the time. It was on the 3rd of May 1970. I was a member of the district front. Actually, I was a deputy of the deputy of the district front at the time.
Did you become the deputy of the district front immediately, or were you appointed to that position a little later on after joining?
At that time, there was an announcement for a meeting, and I was appointed as the deputy district front, and the chief of the district front was also announced at the time.
So you were appointed as the deputy of the district front soon after you joined the revolution. Is that correct? Mr. President, I propose to repeat the question because I've had no answer. Mr. Pikchim, you joined the revolution in 1970. You've then said that there was a meeting when you were appointed as the deputy district for the front. Was this in 1970 or later on?
I was appointed in 1970.
Now, if we look at the leadership of the district, who was the chairperson of the district party in the district?
It was Comrade Khom, a female, who was the head of the party.
Above you at sector level, can you tell us, please, who was the sector secretary back in 1970?
That person, Khom, was the district party secretary from 1970.
I was asking, in fact, about the level above you, so at sector level. Who was the sector secretary, please?
It was Saum who was the sector secretary. Sector 13, I think.
And we haven't yet had the number. What was the number of your district, please?
It was District 105.
I want to move on to the Krang Tachan Security Centre. And I want to ask you some questions about when that security centre started to operate and what the purpose of the security centre was. My first question is going to be based on what you told the agents of this court on the 27th of August 2009. Relevant ERNs English 00380132, Khmer 00373464 through 5, and French 00426202. Mr. Pikchim, you said this to the investigators, and I quote, "That centre was created since 1972 by the sector party and the district party. Can you help us on who at the sector party was involved in the setting up of the Krang Tachan Security Centre?"
President, the prosecutor, could you please repeat your question?
I'll break it down. Mr. Pikchim, is it right that the Krang Tachan Security Centre was set up in 1972, as you stated in your interview?
Yes, the year is correct, or it could have been established earlier than 1972. But at that time, I did not know of its existence. It was the affairs of the sector, not the district.
Now, when you got to find out about the security centre, what did you understand to be the purpose of the security centre?
Through my understanding, it was for the purpose of re-educating people, that is, those bad people, so that they would become good people.
Thank you. I want to refer next to what you told the investigators from this court about these bad people. I refer to the interview on the 27th of August 2009, that is D232/17, English ERN 00380133, Khmer 00373465-6, and French 00426-203/4. Now, Mr. Petchim, in this interview, you said that the bad people included people who refused to join the army. Now, was it a regular occurrence that people who refused to join the army were sent to Krang Tachan?
No, it was not.
Another category of people that you mentioned being sent to Krang Tachan were people who went around attacking the party. Can you give us some examples of what people had said when they were attacking the party? What did that mean?
Response. It means it was part of the movement to fight to win the victory, and that when people did something to disrupt these efforts, these people were regarded as those who opposed the movement.
So was a distinction made between people who supported the movement and people who opposed the movement?
Response. At that time, there was no such distinction. That's what I believed. Because those who joined the movement engaged in the efforts to defend the country, and everyone who was engaged in this movement, either directly or indirectly, locally or internationally, these people could be viewed as those who also shared the sympathy and also supported the movement.
But the people who refused to fight were not supporting the movement, were they?
Response. Yes, they were. Those who did not join the movement did not join the fighting.
Right. and those who attacked the party were not supporting the party. Is that correct? I'm going to ask the question a different way. I want you, Mr. Pekchim, to take some time and explain to this court, please, who the bad people were, from what groups, who were sent to Krang Tachan in 1972 or perhaps before that. What sorts of people?
Response. People were sent to the center for different reasons, and I never know these reasons, and I only knew what happened in the confined area in my position, so I'm afraid I cannot tell you about this. In general, people who opposed the movement would be regarded as the outsiders. I mean, those who opposed the fighting to defend the country would be regarded as the enemies, I believe, in that context. And everyone who joined the movement were the revolution supporters, for sure. And for those who were detained, I think in any society, such people would be jailed, and it doesn't happen just during that period of time.
Would it be fair for me to say, in summary, that the bad people who got sent to Krang Tachan were the enemies?
Response. It is not correct. Only after investigation was carried out to find out the grounds for their wrongdoings, then finally they would be identified as having committed any wrongdoings, because not everyone would be regarded as the enemy, although they were detained.
Thank you. You've clarified that. Now, one other category of person that you mentioned in your interview being sent to Krang Tachan, and for everyone it's the same ERNs as I gave. You spoke of the Khmer Rouge soldiers who defected to the Lon Nol side, and the Lon Nol soldiers who defected to join the Khmer Rouge were also sent to the security centre to be educated and interrogated. Now, can you help me? When did you first discover that some of the people at Krang Tachan were soldiers?
Response. I'm afraid I don't quite understand your question, please.
In your interview, you talk about soldiers going to Krang Tachan to be arrested and interrogated. Now, did you find that out in 1972, 1973, 1974? Help me. When did you discover that soldiers were being held at Krang Tachan?
Response. I only heard about the educational center of the upper echelon, and I heard that people would be sent to that upper echelon's educational center, and only in 1973 that I learned this happened just right closer to me, and that's when I learned about this. It was in 1973.
I want to move on now to the subject of political education. Now, in the third interview you had with the investigators, which was D232/17, English ERN 00380136, Khmer 00373467 and French 004-26206. And I'm moving on in time because this is dealing with 1976. You said that later, when you were the district secretary at Trum Kok, you and somebody called Buen were responsible for propaganda and education. So is it right, Mr. Pek Chim, that you were responsible at some point for propaganda and education?
Response. I am afraid I don't understand your long question. Can you please make it shorter and be brief?
Were you responsible for propaganda and education? Yes or no?
Response. Yes. I worked more in propaganda and education. That was of my prime tasks, and the other things would be handled by my superiors. And I had nothing to do with the prisoners because I would be engaging in the propaganda and the education sessions, and I would be engaged in finding rice for people to eat, and there was at times rice surplus that could be distributed to different districts, and for those who lacked such rice would be distributed from our district. And it was part of my task to ensure that we could find food for everyone, and I loved my nation, my people, and we did our best to make sure we could promote this sympathy and love for our nation. And I never discriminated against anybody of any political background.
Thank you. Now, because you were responsible for propaganda and education, I want to see if you can help the court about what sorts of things were contained in the subject of propaganda and education. And I want to give you some words or phrases that were used during this period to see if you can help us. The first document I refer to, but I'm not asking you to have it, is E3/10, which is a revolutionary flag special issue from September-October 1976. At English page 00450526, French 00491893, and Khmer 00063090. The author of an article says, "There are only workers and peasants in the ranks of our revolution." Was that also your understanding, that there were only workers and peasants in the ranks of the revolution?
Response. I think I did not quite get the last part of your question when you mentioned about workers and peasants. Could you repeat it, please? The President, Mr. Witness, could you please hold on, and Counsel Kope, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honours. Although maybe not a formal objection, but I don't really see the point in asking these complicated questions for this witness. Why not simply ask, first of all, by the way, does he know something called the revolutionary flag? And the second question, what was his position on workers and peasants? Why this endless quote from some revolutionary flag in 76? Why make the question so complicated?
Mr. President, the endless quote was, I think, 6 words. Let me deal with it another way. Mr. Petchchim, was it just workers and peasants in the ranks of the revolution, or were other people in the ranks of the revolution?
Response. Yes, there were other people, including the petty bourgeoisie, the intellectuals, the nationalists, and the rich, and even the former monarchy, including the former king, who was in reign that day, also part of the revolution.
Can you help me on who the feudalist landowner class was? Which sort of people?
Response. I'm afraid I don't know this very much, but I can say that those feudalist landowners would refer to those who had possessed the most land, and the poor had little land or less land.
Now, the revolutionary flag that I'm concentrating on another page, English 00450529, French 00491895 through 6, and Khmer 00063094, talks about class contradictions. I'm going to read part of it to you and then ask you a question. Fundamentally, the contradictions are between the proletarian class and the capitalist class. Aside from these, there are class contradictions with the feudalist, landowner and privileged classes, bracket, sub-district chiefs, district governors, provincial governors, government officials, police and soldiers. Now, the first question is, when you were responsible for propaganda and education, did you know anything about class contradictions?
Response: yes, I did.
Who were the class contradictions between, or can you just explain this further in your own words?
Response: I think class contradictions refer to the contradictions in the daily living. For example, how people live their life. Like the poor would live a luxurious lifestyle, as opposed to the poor who lived a very difficult life. And that gaps also seen in different level. And people, including the monarchy, even the Buddhist monks, were classified differently. There were 5 classes originally, as far as I remember. Later on, they were reduced to fewer because we engaged in the fighting, and that we had to make sure that there was no longer class contradictions, because such contradictions would do no good to our fight for our country. That's why we did our best to make sure that we could live together and limit these class contradictions. So this is how we could resolve it.
Thank you. Did you ever hear of the words life and death contradictions?
Response: yes, I did.
Can you explain that further, please?
Response: this term was not used to refer to what happened in the for the nation. At that time, it was the contradiction between people in the society. But when it comes to life and death contradiction, it refers to the contradictions between countries.
I'm moving on to another revolutionary flag, again to quote part and to see if you can help us. I'm referring to E3/11, a revolutionary flag special issue of September 1977. The relevant page, English ERN 00486-235, French 00492822, and Khmer 000-63146. This is talking about the National Democratic Revolution. And in this official document, the author states, "We divided our enemies into three groups. First, to win over those enemies who could be won over. Second, to neutralize those who could be neutralized. And thirdly, to isolate the most vicious in order to attack them." Now, can you help me, please? Who were, as far as you were aware, considered to be enemies?
Response. People have different understanding regarding this. Enemy in this refers to the enemies regarding ideology. For example, people would love or like different aspects differently. And how could we eradicate such differences? And no one could ever do this. In previous regime, people could not get rid of this. And also, this was carried on to the next regimes.
Mr. President, next I would like to refer to a statement in this case. I've not been able to print it out this morning because none of us could access our computers. To see if, first of all, if the witness recognises the name, I've simply written the name of this witness down on a piece of paper. And can I please just present the piece of paper to the witness to see if he recognises the name?
The President, you may proceed, and Court Greffier is now directed to bring this document to the witness for examination, please.
For the benefit of my learned friends, the document is D25/28. Now, Mr. Petchim, I've handed to you a piece of paper with somebody's name on it. Now, this person described themselves as the youth chairman in District 105. They said that they worked with you, and this person actually worked at the District Committee of 105 from 1970 to 1979. Now, so do you, first of all, recognise the name of the witness?
Response. I cannot recollect it. I'm afraid I can't recall this name, and I don't know whether the person is young or old.
I just want to see if you can help on one topic mentioned by the witness. The witness spoke of attending special meetings and study sessions.
The President, Mr. Co-Prosecutor, could you please hold on, and Counsel Kope, you may proceed.
Would my learned friend be able to explain why we're going through this procedure with a piece of paper showing the witness a name, a person that he apparently doesn't know? We have to sort of find out who the guy is. Can we be a little more concrete in respect to what is happening here?
Mr. President, I'm simply going to put to this witness reference to a meeting and see if the witness recollects it. That's all.
President, the prosecution, you may continue.
So this witness, I need to give some pages, Mr. Petchim. English 0022 3478. French 00651261. And the Khmer 000163495. I think it may be 496. This witness talks about a 23rd anniversary meeting taking place at Phnom Trel, I'll spell that T-R-E-L, near Tatny, T-A-N-Y, when Tamok a meeting when Tamok talked about enemies and said that people had to inspect and monitor for enemy activity. Now, did you ever receive instructions about inspecting and monitoring enemy activity?
Miền
Yes.
បានតាមដាន
We monitored the enemy's activities. We needed to verify whether they were the real people or the enemies.
Thank you. I want to go back to the bad people who were sent to Krang Tachan from 1972 up to liberation on the 17th of April 1975. And I'm asking you questions about what happened to people if they did not obey the rules after being educated. Again, I need to give some numbers. I'm referring to your interview D232/17, English ERN 00380134, Khmer 00373466, and French 004-26204. And Mr. Petchim, I'm quoting to you now what you told the investigators. But if they still did not obey the rules after being educated, the commune would ask for an opinion from the district committee, which composed of KOM, Kiev, that's K-E-A-V, Nev, and me. Is that correct for people who did not obey the rules?
President, witness, please wait. The Defense Counsel, you may proceed.
For the record, Mr. President, I object to this question. The prosecutor is asking a question and presenting the witness with the answer at the same time, obviously leading and should not be permitted.
It's back to the same old point again. I don't know how many times I need to make submissions on this. This witness has given 5 previous OCIJ statements. We have a well-established procedure of extracts of the statement being put and then supplemental questions asked. I'm adopting that same procedure that we've adopted now with dozens of witnesses before this court. This is not, by contrast, the same sort of incident we had last week or before with Nu Mu, where one was dealing with notes taken, for instance, by Mr. Kiernan. These are interviews that are with OCIJ investigators. To adopt a phrase, they have relevant indicia of reliability, and that's the reason why, with previous OCIJ statements, we have adopted this approach. I'm simply carrying on that approach, and I don't understand the continual objection to it. So I ask, please, can I proceed, or is the Chamber introducing a different rule now for the examination of OCIJ witnesses?
President, Defense Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I simply wanted to add that in certain cases, the objections did serve a purpose, and this is a case in point. This morning, this witness has been asked how many times he was interviewed by the investigators and on which date. He answered that he was interviewed during 4 consecutive days in 2005. This is not indicated anywhere, nor is his interview of 2008 recorded. The witness is stating that he is unable to recall how many times and when he was interviewed. And in this particular instance, I believe that it is very important that we know very clearly what this particular witness recalls, perhaps even some 40 years ago. And this is why I fully support the objection lodged by my colleague, Counsel Kope.
President, there are 2 reasons. First, the prosecutor needs to get the reconfirmation, in particular in response to this morning question, as there was an incorrect year of the 4 interviews conducted at his house. Secondly, if the date of the interviews of which he read before his appearance are correct, then the objection to any extract that you make from those interviews he gave to the investigators of the OCIJ is incorrect. And that is the existing practice that we have implemented for almost 2 years before this court. So if a party thinks that it is of interest of justice and finding the truth to extract a portion of the written record of the interview of a witness, it is considered correct and allowed, and it is not considered a leading question.
Mr. Petch-Jim, we have on our case file records suggesting that you were interviewed on 4 occasions in August 2009. The first interview on the 25th of August 2009. The second interview on the 26th of August 2009. The third interview on the 27th of August 2009. And the fourth interview on the 28th of August 2009. Now that I have refreshed your memory of the dates of those interviews, are these the interviews that you had and the interviews that you have read?
Your question is incorrect, in particular regarding the year. I cannot recall the exact dates as I do not bring the records with me. And actually, the written records that I were given, I kept it in a closet at my house, and I have not read it. And just to tell you, I been pretty busy in engaging in farming, and I'm almost 78 years old. So I need to earn my living as well. So I do not actually give much attention to those written records of interview. I need to struggle to maintain my personal life and living condition. But just to make sure, I was interviewed 4 times in the past, and recently I was interviewed once before my appearance. I was interviewed actually on the 29th, and some military officers actually came to meet me and interviewed me regarding my appearance before this court.
Thank you. I think we need to be absolutely clear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand to you copies in Khmer of the interviews that took place. Can you just bear with me one moment? So, Mr. Petchim, I'm handing you the first 4 records of interview that have some signatures and thumbprints on each page. I'd like you just to look at these for one moment, please. Mr. President, can these be tendered to the witness?
Yes, you may do so. Court officer, could you deliver the documents from the prosecution for the witness examination?
Mr. Petchim, I'd like you just to take a moment and look at those documents. Is that December 2000? And there's also a 5th interview on the 6th of December 2009. Can that please be handed, Mr. President?
Yes, you may do so. Court officer, could you deliver the document for the witness examination?
Now, Mr. Petchim, having had the chance to have a look at those, do you accept that they're the records of interview with your thumbprints on the page? And does that also refresh you now on the dates?
Yes.
That having now been established, I'm going to repeat my question. And to remind you of the subject. It's about the procedure at Krang Tachan from 1972, or whenever it was set up, to 1975. 4 people who did not obey the rules. And you told the investigators if they still did not obey the rules after being educated, the commune would ask for an opinion from the district committee. Now, is that correct? For bad people who did not obey the rules?
At that location, the sub-district or the district itself did not have a hand to play there. It was a separate affairs. If we interfered in that affair, we would be in trouble. As we all know, we minded our own business, and they minded theirs. And we could see that they requested to reduce the number of the people, in particular the Secretary Saum. But mostly those people were good people. I actually engaged in the investigation to inspect, and then I made both a verbal and written report through the district parties committee, that is through the female com. If this person or that person shall be released based on my request, and then they would consider the matters that I raised. And 2 days later, they sent the names back, and those people were subsequently released. And there are other examples. So we had to be specific in what we engage. And Saum, who was in charge of the military at Krang Tachan, he could have asked me 1,000 times, but I would not know how to respond because I did not know anything regarding that.
Mr. Pechchin.
Allow me to add a little bit more. One day, I requested him to release some people because they were good people. He reviewed the case and asked me to go and to return those people, and instructed me to see whether they were fit and whether they had any illnesses or wounds on their bodies. And he asked me to give extra rice to those people. And of course I had rice with me, and I brought the rice along.
Forgive me, I have to interrupt because your answer has nothing to do with the question I asked. I want to be clear on this. Do you stand by the accounts you gave to the investigators from this court?
Yes, I stand by to the statement.
Do you understand that I'm reading out to you what you said to the investigators? Do you understand that?
I couldn't get the last part of your question.
I'm going to read to you, word for word, what you told the investigators when you were interviewed. And I'm then going to ask you if you stand by your answer. You told the investigators this: if they still did not obey the rules after being educated, the commune would ask for an opinion from the district committee, which composed of Kom, Kiev, Niev and me, and the relevant commune committee. We would then hold a meeting to discuss the matter and make the decision. Do you stand by that answer? Yes or no?
Yes.
You also said that the party secretary was the one to make the final decision, but that the district level had to consult with the sector party first. So my question is it right that the district level had to consult with the sector party first?
No, that is not correct.
So can you explain who made decisions about what to do with bad people who did not obey the rules? Mr. President, I don't think the witness understands. I'm going to have another try. If somebody was bad and didn't obey the rules at Krang Tachan, who had the final decision about what happened to them?
President, a witness, please wait. The defense counsel, you may proceed. Kong Sam-on, thank you, Mr. President. I object to this question. The prosecution raised a question which is a presumption of something that did not happen. You use the word if something were to happen. It reflects that that kind of thing did not exist, and for that reason it is of no use for the bench to deliberate on this point.
Mr. President, can I just deal with it in another way by quoting from the statement, please? Mr. Pitchjim, I'm again going to read out to you, word for word, what you told the investigators. I'm then going to ask you if you stand by what you said. On this subject, you said, the district level had to consult with the sector party first before any specific decision was made. The sector party then would make a final decision. The district party was the one to implement the decision of the sector party. Do you stand by that?
Allow me to make a comment. In fact, it seems that I did not say that. So it cannot be used. It could be wrongly interpreted. We made the report through the sector, and whatever was made by the sector, then we would abide by that decision. So I would ask you to correct it based on my statement now. The district would make a report to the sector.
And the sector report back to the district? With instructions of what to do.
No, because the sector already knew what happened. Then they would do the work at the sector's office. The district only had the roles to transmit the matter to the sector. And if they came for the people or came to take the people, we did not dare to oppose. We had to give them the people that they requested, because they were sure of what they did, and we had to be quiet. But if we were certain, then we would defend our position not to give them the people. President, thank you, Prosecutor. The time is appropriate for a short break. We will take a 20-minute break and return at 10 to 11. Court officer, please assist the witness during the break and have him return to the courtroom at 10 to 11. Likewise, it applies to the Duty Counsel. The court is now in recess.